This podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Bogosity. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's audibletrial.com/Bogosity. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the 21st of November 2016, the podcast that always blames its predecessor. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me this week, finally, after a long absence, he's back, he's bad, he's Lord T. Hawkeye himself, Tim Dyson.
Greeting as always, boys and girls.
So what you been doing with yourself?
Working on my comic and my RPG. I wanted to kind of take a break from politics.
Yeah, it looks like you did get another political video up, though.
Yeah, this was so big I couldn't just stay away from it.
We're going to be seeing more of those, or are you still going to be focusing on other things?
If the whim strikes me, if I think I have something to contribute, sure.
Okay. Well, first, a couple of announcements. Next week is Thanksgiving here in the good old US of A, and the week after that is the final shooting day for the Woods Talk, so no podcast for 2 weeks. After that, we'll be back with one, maybe two more regular podcasts. I'm not sure. It depends on holiday schedules. And that'll be it for 2016, except, of course, for our year-end wrap-up and the announcement of the 2016 Idiot of the Year.
Awesome.
Now, if you remember almost 2 years ago, I was also having to take a week off here and there to shoot a short subject called housekeeping. For about a year, it went around the festival circuit, and so now we've been trying to find venues so people can watch it, so I thought I'd let you know that it's now available as pay-per-view. The link is in the show notes, so please go check that out. I think you can see the first 5 minutes for free, so. Okay, let's circumnavigate the news of the bogus. So, Hawkeye, I guess your guy won. Trump is president-elect now.
Yes, indeed. This was the one time I wished I could vote in the U.S. election, but I couldn't, so I had to settle for the next best thing, trying to convince as many Americans as I could to vote for him.
I remember you actually predicting he would win at a time when even the prediction markets were saying Hillary.
Oh, yeah. Something was just not up. And my basic reasoning was there were people who were predicting the other way, and the people who were market-facing were predicting he would win. It was people who were in government-protected organizations who were predicting Hillary would win, and that pretty much told me everything I needed to know.
So did you place any bets on it? You could have won a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I think at one point Trump was down to like 20 cents or something.
Yeah, in hindsight, maybe I should have, but I've never been big on gambling.
Yeah, but man, people who did get into that price. Well, although I never supported Trump, and honestly I'm not that hopeful of him being anything resembling a good president, I do have to admit to a perverse pleasure in seeing all the liberal butthurt.
Oh yeah, I made the case. If nothing else, that alone should be a good reason. Because that sort of nonsense, 4 more years of that, no, there is no way America could handle that.
So just as kind of a microcosm for you, this is a story about how the liberals have really shown their true colors, and in particular the campus, social justice warrior, safe space type liberals. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, how could I not?
So, for example, the University of Michigan Law School announced a post-election self-care event with food and play, including, quote, coloring sheets, Play-Doh, positive card making, Legos, and bubbles with your fellow law students. Now, I'll admit the Legos sound pretty cool, but other than that...
Like, does nobody say to these people, aren't you a little old for this kind of stuff? I mean, this is not daycare. It's not even public schooling. It's like post-secondary.
Well, and like the article points out, these are law students. If they can't handle this, how are they going to handle actual stressful litigation in court?
These people don't have any plan. Like, they just think they're going to be... where's the actual payoff for all of this? This is abuse is what it is.
Your Honor overruled my objection. I need to run up to my safe space and start coloring. Yeah, that's not going to go over well.
Oh, Judge Judy would destroy these people.
Stanford sent out an email to students and faculty letting them know that psychological counseling was available for those experiencing, quote, uncertainty, anger, anxiety, and or fear after the election, kind of making it sound like it was 9/11 or something.
Anxiety, fear, and all that sort of thing? How do you think all the people you've been slandering and slurring for the past year feel? Unbelievable.
You also had the University of Michigan at Flint doing the same thing, as well as Trump's alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, where student Daniel Tancredi reported that people who attended were fearful about the results of the election. Quote, "For the most part, students just hung out and ate snacks and made small talk. Of course, that was in addition to coloring and playing with the animals. Yeah, they had puppies."
It's one of those things, it's so ridiculous. It sounds like a joke we'd make about them, not something that's real. And the stupid thing is, there was a lot more to fear about Hillary by any objective measure. She wanted war with Russia. She was unbelievably corrupt. The list just goes on. Even a cursory glance, like some of the stuff about her, I seriously thought was just some conspiracy theory stuff, and then it turned out to be true. Like, what? Alex Jones was right? What the heck?
Hey, the blind squirrel found a nut. But it's just amazing to me, the denial. They are still denying that the emails are real, saying that, they were all faked and they were all... When anyone can verify it because they were all digitally signed, all you need to do is download some free software and you can verify the signature yourself.
Look, she committed perjury. It's on tape. That alone should have been enough to bust her, but she's got the magic D by her name, so of course she's immune. One of the reasons people voted for Trump is because they're sick and tired of that.
Over at Cornell, they had a cry-in. According to the Fix, quote, "As the event took place, students, roughly 20 or so, according to the Cornell Daily Sun's video, wrote their reactions and emotions on poster board with colored markers or with chalk on the ground. A chilly day on the Ithaca campus. At one point, the demonstrators huddled together as what appeared to be a barista brought them warm drinks." Sit-ins just aren't what they were. Remember that sit-in in Congress over, I forget what it was, gun control or whatever, and they brought in like catering or something?
Oh.
Where were the ones that were like peeing in buckets? Those are the sit-ins I remember.
They've got no spine. Like, these people are completely unprepared for the real world, and now they're just fighting as hard as they can to try and stay away from it.
Yale had a group scream. Tufts had arts and crafts. The University of Kansas had therapy dogs.
It haunts me that I once seriously considered going to post-secondary, and then I decided against it. I am just looking at what kind of a bullet I dodged right now.
I think generally if you were at a private school, you're at a better chance of being at a more reasonable place, but most of these seem to be.
Even they're not immune anymore.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them get government funding anyway, so.
Yeah.
And there's also a number of different colleges around there. There were reports of where, oh, well, if you're too stressed out by the election results, you don't have to take the exam. It's optional now.
The really stupid thing is when they're doing all these things, all they're doing is confirming to Trump voters that they did the right thing, because they look at this and go, these people would have been the boss of you if it had swung the other way.
University of Michigan President Mark Schissel wrote, quote, "Our responsibility is to remain committed to education, discovery, and intellectual honesty, and to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are at our best when we come together to engage respectfully across our ideological differences, to support all who feel marginalized, threatened, or unwelcome, and to pursue knowledge and understanding."
The left doesn't care about diversity. They never have.
Well, they're marginalizing an entire group of pretty much half the country.
Yeah, it's funny. You'd think him screaming racism at half the country would have endeared them to your cause a little better.
Oh, you mean calling people racists and homophobes and backwards hayseeds and stuff like that isn't a good way to get them on your side?
Yeah, those words just need to be retired. They don't serve any purpose. I mean, if the person is a racist, then calling them that is just going to get you a no duh. And if they are not a racist, then you're just slandering people and trying to manipulate them, and everyone's wise to that.
They don't really understand what diversity is. I mean, they talk about having a diversity of race and culture and things like that. Okay, that means you have black people with dreadlocks, but when it comes to actually having opposing opinions...
Yeah, but effectively, you're putting race ahead of what the person is inside. I think you kind of got it backwards from what Martin Luther King was going on about.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, it should be about individuals finding out who they are truly inside, regardless of whether that goes with their culture or against their culture or with or against any one political philosophy. And that's really what education is supposed to be about.
Hey, look. I want to not care about race. The only reason I talk about it is because these people keep bringing it up, and I have to. I want to not care. Bottom line, people, you were lied to about Hillary's chances of winning. You were lied to about the polls. So consider the possibility that maybe you were also lied to about what kind of a threat Trump is to you. Just consider it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the fear-mongering. Trump isn't Hitler. Hillary isn't Stalin. They're not that bad. Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level. We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. So, we've been following the story of the Copyright Office considering the future of the DMCA. They've been getting information from all over the place, from legal and technological experts, showing them how horrific the whole thing is, and from big content cartels begging for protectionism. And at the end of it all, the Copyright Office seems completely clueless as to which way to go. So they've published a report where they're asking for more information. And actually, this I can kind of respect, because they're really trying to pin them down to something concrete. Like, for example, we talked about the notice and stay down policy that the MPAA and RAAA want them to do. Because right now it's notice and take down. You put up something copyrighted, they send a notice and they take it down. Someone else puts up, even if it's the same thing, they have to do another notice and take that down. They wanted to stay down even though that other person who put it up second might have bought a license to do it. They might have licensed that content.
The big problem with this sort of thing is the cons of this are clearly visible. We've all seen them. But the pros, they seem to be pure theory and nothing else to them. Like they say, we got to stop people from ripping off other people's work. And I just ask, how many of those have you actually foiled?
Yeah. And service providers are talking just about how unworkable it is. Like, we're supposed to look at every single upload and look for every single thing we've ever gotten a notice on ever.
Some video game companies, I'm not going to mention names here, are been taking down people who put up Let's Plays and things on YouTube. But then there's some companies that not only allow it, they encourage it. Like Blizzard, they outright encourage people to put their content on. And Blizzard hasn't gone out of business. They're doing fine. Where's the evidence? Where's the payoff? Where's the proof? Give us something.
In fact, I'd wager they were doing better because of that policy.
I wouldn't doubt it. That's probably why they're encouraging it.
And of course, we've seen the abuse. That's a good way to silence someone, do a bogus takedown notice, and that was another thing that was brought up to them. So they're wanting people to say clearly what they actually want. Quote, several study participants have proposed some version of a notice and stay down system. Is such a system advisable? Please describe in specific detail how such a system should operate and include potential legislative language if appropriate. If it is not advisable, what particular problems would such a system impose? Are there ways to mitigate or avoid those problems? What implications, if any, would such a system have for future online innovation and content creation? Okay, so they're asking questions. That's at least good. They're not just declaring we know best and that's it, which is what you'd normally expect. Well, and they're also not asking for, sound bites or political rhetoric. They're really wanting to pin people down. Okay, so far so good. Then there's the DMCA safe harbor system. Basically, in the world of copyright, you have to get special privileges to enjoy what websites and other providers enjoy everywhere else. Everywhere else, websites and ISPs and people like that are not responsible for the actions of their users. In the copyright system, they are, unless they meet a whole bunch of criteria for DMCA safe harbor. So on that, they say, quote, How should the divergence in views be considered by policymakers? Is there a neutral way to measure how effective the DMCA safe harbor regime has been in achieving Congress's twin goals of supporting the growth of the internet while addressing the problem of online piracy? And there's a bunch of other questions in there as well, like the repeat infringer issue, which is what Cox has been fighting in court, basically wanting to force them to ban users, just completely take them off the internet because they committed multiple copyright violations and things like that. It's not an easy read. It's one of those where it's, 8.5 by 11, 3 columns and really tiny print and all that. But on the whole, I think it's good. I mean, it's really going to get people on both sides just offering something more concrete, which I really think the anti-IP side can do a lot better than the MPAA and the RIAA, who really don't have a leg to stand on.
Let's hope so, because from what I've seen so far, you haven't stopped piracy. That still happens. They always find workarounds. So once again, it's one of those policies where all you're doing is inconveniencing everyday people who didn't actually do anything wrong. And you've completely failed to prove that piracy is even a real threat to anyone anyway.
Yeah, and we're supposed to have a First Amendment here. That's the kind of thing I keep coming back to is, why is this even a conversation?
Indeed.
But the deadline for submissions is March 8, after which they'll try to reach some conclusions, so I guess we'll keep you posted when that happens.
Good luck to them and hope they do the right thing.
Hey everybody, this is Dave of the Superplex Bros, and you're listening to the Bogosity podcast. When you're done, why don't you head over to superplexbros.com. We have all kinds of editorials and reviews on video games and pro wrestling. We're also currently hosting a major project called the Superplex Pokemon League, and we're about to go into our 3rd season. We just had our actual draft, and we're going over all of the teams and their draft picks. So why don't you head on over there, check things out, and if you like, you can even check out the Superplex Brothers podcast, where Matt and I basically bullshit about video games, pro wrestling, or whatever the hell we want. Anyway, until next time, take care.
Well, as bad as our surveillance state is, and as worse as it might get under Trump if some of his appointments are any indication, at least it's not as bad as China. China has apparently had at least one of their technology groups place firmware into many Android phones with a backdoor sending identification information and metadata back to China.
Oh, brother.
And this is in firmware from Shanghai Adapts Technology, which, according to the company, they're used on over 700 million phones worldwide, including phones in the United States. A group called CryptoWire found it, and they confirmed that the software sends out the full bodies of text messages, contact lists, call history with full telephone numbers, and unique device identifiers. In other words, everything they'd need to keep you under surveillance.
All I know is one simple fact. The countries with the snoopiest governments are not the lowest crime ones. So the idea that they need to do this to prevent bad things from happening, sorry, doesn't add up.
Well, what I keep coming back to is look at Boston Marathon, look at San Bernardino. Prove to us that you can do it when people are communicating out in the open first, and then we might consider letting you look at a few private things.
Yeah, you see this all the time with these regulations. They say they need them, and yet time and time again, they can't even catch the obvious ones. Like, people tell me we need the government to protect us from scammers, and yet the most blatantly obvious scammers you can imagine are still operating no problem.
Now, technically, Shanghai Adapts is not affiliated with the Chinese government, but in another way, every Chinese company is affiliated with the Chinese government. They're all under their thumb. And they also have admitted that the software was written by a request from a Chinese manufacturer, but they wouldn't name the company, so... CryptoWire said it discovered the malware when one of its researchers bought a phone to travel with and noticed some irregular traffic patterns. Google has said that the company has to remove its software from any Android phones that run Google Play, and if not, they'll shut off Google Play access, so that's good. Maybe that'll get some action. Now, a lot of this may sound like things that we've always known before. It's like, yeah, they're collecting all that metadata, so what? Well, the difference here is they're not just aggregating it, they're not disclosing it, and all the other companies that do that disclose it. But this software also makes it possible to identify and track specific phones. It also enables apps to be updated and installed and allows for remote execution and privilege escalation, which means that they could identify a phone, get into the phone, make themselves an administrator, install additional spyware on it, and get full access to the phone. And then when they're done, they can remove that software and not leave any trace of it.
Totally won't be abused, of course.
Yeah. Now, the specific phone they discovered it on was the Blue R1 HD. The CEO of Blue Products said that the company was not aware of the firmware's capabilities and that it's been removed. I don't know about phones that have actually been sold. I don't know if there's a firmware update or if you have to take it back and get one switched out. But as a Nexus 6P user, that phone was made by Huawei, so I was particularly interested in what they had to say. So they said, quote, "We take our customers' privacy and security very seriously, and we work diligently to safeguard that privacy and security. The company mentioned in this report is not on our list of approved suppliers, and we have never conducted any form of business with them." So that's good. Mine's secure, at least.
It sounds like a really good way to discourage people from buying stuff from China, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's the thing. It's not just, it goes with the IoT malware that was also from China that we covered a week or two ago, whenever that happened. It was just in the firmware or on the chips that downstream suppliers were using. So it wasn't even like, oh, I'm just not going to buy any products from that company. How do you know? Want to get $5 really quick? Just fire up your mobile device and go to Get5, that's GET numeral 5.bogosity.tv. By using this link to sign into the Amazon app for the first time, or if it's been more than 12 months, you'll get $5 off your order of $10 or more. So what are you waiting for? Go to get5.bogosity.tv. Now you can make Amazon purchases with Bitcoin by going to purse.bogosity.tv. That's P-U-R-S-E. Save an average of 20% just by buying from Purse, or get even greater discounts by linking your Amazon wish list. Go to purse.bogosity.tv. Bogosity.tv is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates program. Just clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv. Or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for Amazon's best deals. So next time you buy online, go to amazon.bogosity.tv. And now it's time to inculpate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And when you suffer a big loss like Hillary Clinton did in this year's election, it's a time for self-reflection. A time to ask why people rejected you, what you did wrong, and how you can use this information to improve yourself and make yourself a better, more successful person, more deserving of the things you ask for others. Or you could do like Hillary's doing and just blame someone else. Specifically, she's blaming James Comey because how dare he try to investigate illegal things that she did.
Oh, my first guess was she blamed the patriarchy, but oh well.
No, I think she's got a little more tangible target here. And the irony is, the speculation at least is that Comey declined to recommend that she be prosecuted in order to win her favor, and now I guess he doesn't have it.
Well, maybe he'll do it anyway now. What's he got to lose?
So Clinton told donors in a conference call last Saturday, quote, "There are lots of reasons why an election like this is not successful, but our analysis is that Comey's letter raising doubts that were groundless, baseless, proven to be, stopped our momentum."
Yo, your campaign was in trouble long before that ever happened, Hillary.
Yeah, and that's actually what Marcy Wheeler pointed out when she looked at the data. She said, quote, "What these two pieces from Trump's data analyst and Hillary's pollster suggest is a correlation between the Comey letter and Trump's improved chances. But there's no proof of causation, certainly not that Comey is the primary explanation. In fact, Trump's analysts say the trend started before the Comey letter. This was a weird election, but it is still highly unlikely that a letter released on October 28th can entirely explain a trend that started before October 28th.
There was a multitude of reasons, like, what exactly did Hillary stand for? Like, what principles was there to her? There was nothing. Look at her follower page. There was nothing there. It was just a bunch of her tut-tutting everything she doesn't like, while Trump was selling people all these great promises, all this praise and everything. He got people fired up, and Hillary was just dull as dishwater.
She has a vagina, I think that was it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Obama already milked that dry. People weren't going to go for that again.
It's interesting. More women actually voted for Trump than Hillary. Maybe, just maybe, they thought that she was insulting their intelligence.
Yeah, in fact, If minorities had voted the same way this time that they did last time, then Hillary would have won. So a lot of minorities felt they got burned by Obama, so they switched over to Trump. They said, enough of this. We've had enough of the Democrats bungeeing in, making promises, and then bungeeing straight back out as soon as they get in.
Now, it is true that there were a lot of late deciding voters that went for Trump in a lot of key states, but there were also plenty who went in the other direction, which is pretty much at odds with Clinton's narrative. And in particular, in Virginia, that ended up swinging over entirely to Hillary, so... And I think it goes back to what you said is, well, Hillary wasn't really promising to fix anything. People were talking about the economy and crime and, like I said earlier, this big anti-establishment movement that Trump really raised traction on. How anti-establishment the guy actually is, I kind of doubt, but at least he tapped into that, and what was Hillary tapping into?
The thing is, this is something Bill Mitchell actually said, the biggest mistake the Democrats made is they lied so much they came to believe their own lies. Like throughout this whole election, they were absolutely convinced that they had this in the bag. I don't think they were actually trying to demoralize people. I think they honestly believed that. Like you saw how Hillary practically just put her feet up and probably told herself she totally had this in the bag. The Democrats got lazy, they got arrogant, and now they just got slapped with reality.
I think there was also an entitlement there. She was acting like this was something that she was owed.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, it's my turn. That was kind of the mentality going into this. And I'm sorry, but that's not terribly convincing to voters. Vote for me because you owe it to me. What?
So something else Wheeler said, quote, she, meaning Hillary, said nothing about other larger forces at work, Trump's message of change in arrestive time, his pledge to represent the aggrieved working class, the difficulty of any political party winning a third consecutive presidential term, her own limited attention to economic anxiety, or the sexism and discomfort that surrounded her attempt to become the first female president. Most of which was generated by her, as far as I could see.
Oh, yeah. And what made it worse is how obviously biased the media was about it. I mean, she was guilty of some pretty serious stuff, and the media was busy yawping about completely inconsequential nonsense about Trump. Like, it couldn't have been more obvious if they tried.
Well, like that video where he talks about, grabbing someone by a certain body part, that was from like 15 or 20 years ago or something, where it was just a couple of guys just kind of yakking.
And to his credit, he apologized for it. Meanwhile, Hillary attacked women who made very credible accusations against her husband, and there was the thing about how she got a rapist off in court and laughed about it, and she has never apologized for that. She defends those actions to this very day, and I think that makes it pretty clear who the real sexist here is.
But although there were plenty of times that Trump talked about things like race and sex when he was responding to issues like that, are there any times he actually brought them up?
No. And all the quotes people say that are racist, he was talking about specific people, not races as a general. It's just the media spun it that way.
And it's not necessarily racist to be against illegal immigration. I mean, I don't agree with that policy, but someone can agree with the policy and not be racist.
It still isn't against it completely. It's just the mentality is immigration should be beneficial to the U.S. The U.S. should not be detrimenting itself for the sake of immigrants.
Of course, I think as I've shown, immigrants pretty much are a benefit, just kind of all on their own. But.
And also, Australia has this thing where they say, oh, we need doctors, we need this, we look for that. Like, they don't just let everyone who wants, they look for specific people and stuff like that. And there's lots of countries that have very, very strict requirements, and nobody harps on them about it. So if people think it's wrong to have strict immigration, you've got way, way bigger fish to fry than the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, heck, Israel has a wall on its borders. How come nobody's attacking them for that? They have good reason to, but still.
Well, they also had a good reason to build a Berlin Wall, but we saw how that turned out. Mm-hmm. Now, this just might be the last time, who knows, that Hillary picks up just one more biggest Bogon emitter. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. And now, for just the third time this year, we have a recipient of the Silver Cluon Award, and it's Matt Masur of Huffington Post.
What?
Someone from HuffPo got the Silver Cluon?
What the heck did that slip past?
And it's well-deserved, too. So listen to the beautiful fail of a title. Bernie Sanders could replace President Trump with little-known loophole, subtitled, "Read this article and then share with your friends." And his opening paragraph is, "Here is exactly what we need to do to save our great society. The information here is what we've all been waiting for. By doing this, we can make Bernie the president on Inauguration Day rather than President-elect Donald Trump." So wait, why is he getting the Silver Cluon for writing something so obviously fake and clickbaity? Because of how his article continues, quote, "Actually, no, we can't. There is no loophole that allows a random person to assume the office of president. That's pretty basic common sense, but yet you clicked or even shared this article anyway. Now that right there is the real point of this post."
Oh, snap.
And yeah, I mean, we've all seen this, and I'll admit I've been guilty of it a few times. There's a story, I'll share it without reading it all the way through or without doing diligent fact-checking, and I've got egg on my face for it. I tried to do better, but yeah, I mean, this is just people are just throwing things around and everyone's just going by the clickbaity headlines and no one's really reading into the article.
That's been one of the bottlenecks in my attempts to educate people, is that most of the stuff I link to them is long because, unfortunately, as has been said before, I can't explain economics or politics to you in 140 characters. I wish I could, but I'm sorry, I just can't.
Well, it's like the people who want me to tell them quickly in a comment explain about this concept instead of linking them to this 25-minute video I made, but like there's a reason why I made the 25-minute long video.
If I told it to you that quickly, you would get the wrong impression because it wouldn't give you all the details.
So he gives 5 steps you can do just to keep in mind whenever you see something like that. The first is read first, then share, check the source, and their sources. You got to check the sources of the sources because a lot of these aren't referencing primary material. They're referencing another article or Wikipedia or something like that. Watch out for recycled stories. We've been guilty of this before a couple of times, gotten egg on our face. And that also ties into this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. But it's just something like you have something like a story that's 4 or 5 years old and then it's being passed around like it just happened. He says check the date on the story before you read on. I've noticed that sometimes that isn't enough because if you check, like you said earlier, check the source of the source, you go there and it's from like 2007 or something like that. 4, I think I'm actually going to disagree with a tiny bit. He says, if you care about facts, ignore the blatantly slanted. Any website with the words conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, etc. in the title are just advertising how slanted they are. That's okay if you choose to live in your site's bubble, but don't have any delusions that these stories reflect the whole picture. My problem with that is I kind of want the sites to do that. I want them to tell me what their bias is so I can read it in that context and understand that it's being sent through this filter.
I think the better way to put that would be make sure you read all sides. I do read my opposition, as painful as it is. I do read it. I know what the socialist arguments are. I know what the statist arguments are. And I do know why they believe them. Don't read only one side. You're going to get a skewed perception of the world.
And the 5th is Google it. See if the same facts are reported across multiple outlets. See if anyone disputes these facts. Read these pieces and then make up your mind. That's something I always try to do when I'm preparing the podcast. I try to see if there's like different outlets reporting the story. And even then, you always got to check for, hey, these stories are pretty much the same verbatim because they're all going from the same press release or from the same, like Reuters or somewhere, which is a distributor that just sends it to everyone and then they kind of pass it on. Just understand that if that's the case, you're still only getting one point of view. So, using clickbait to warn people about clickbait. That's just too beautiful not to give Matt Masur the Silver Cluon. Enjoy it, Matt, and hey, it might even save your life.
Yes, indeed.
History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's LibertyClassroom.com. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, LibertyClassroom.com teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects, and when you sign up, you get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code Bogosity in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit LibertyClassroom.com. And now it's time to dechlorinate this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Now, these are a couple of articles that are being passed around like we just talked about as though they're new, but they're really about 4 years old. But they're the basis for a lot of reports among the pro-organic, anti-GMO nut bar crowd. But since we haven't talked about aspartame myths before, I thought this was a good chance to do so. Yes, we're talking about the artificial sweetener, which is just the worst thing since rat poison, according to these people. The first one is Janet Hull, who does have a PhD in nutrition, but gives us one more example of how having a PhD certainly doesn't mean you're a rational person, so... She claims that aspartame has been renamed to amino sweet, and the point of this kind of conspiracy is that they're hiding what it really is. No, that's not the case. Amino sweet came onto the market in 2009 from a Japanese company called Ajinomoto. I probably mangled that, but they've been making aspartame for decades. The patent for it expired in 1992, so all they've done is release a new product containing aspartame with a new brand name, Amino Sweet. No one's actually renamed aspartame.
Yeah, don't they have an ingredients list where you can see it's got aspartame right there, so...
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there are other things like, I think Equal is aspartame.
That's not much of a conspiracy if you can read it on the label.
Yeah, it's just a brand name, but any way to scare the ignorant morons that comprise their readership, I guess. But she says, quote, "Global scientific research has discovered that the amino acids found in aspartame are not natural. Those amino acids are aspartic acid and phenylalanine, which are 2 of the 23 building blocks of proteins. If they're not natural, nothing is."
And once again, the definition of natural is not given.
Mm-hmm. Aspartic acid is naturally found in oysters, meat, including wild game, oats, avocados, asparagus, and lots of other places. Phenylalanine is found in milk, including the milk of breastfeeding mothers. Eggs, chicken, liver, shrimp, soybeans, tofu, spinach, kale, and many others. I mean, there's no way this stupid woman doesn't get both of these on a regular basis, because basically the alternative is starving to death.
You ever see that picture of the chemical breakdown of an apple and it's all a bunch of scary chemical names?
Yeah, just like if it was like an ingredients list on a product, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's scary, but apples do contain trace amounts of things like cyanide or formaldehyde.
Yeah, it's just not enough to harm you.
Yep, the dose makes the poison.
Yeah, it's like a famous chemist once said, there are no toxic substances, only toxic doses.
Now, the dose is going to vary from one substance to another, but that's the idea. So she says, quote, "Scientific studies," she doesn't link to them, by the way, "also confirm that aspartame causes brain lesions, cancers such as leukemia and lymphoma, memory loss, fetal deformities, and weight gain." No, they don't. They confirm over and over again that it's completely safe.
Put it in my tea for years. I feel fine.
There is one health issue that's linked to aspartame, and that's phenylketonuria, which is a birth defect that results in decreased metabolism of phenylalanine. That was one of the 2 amino acids we talked about. And it affects about 1 in every 25,000 babies. The idea is you're getting this phenylalanine in, but your body can't process it. That means 1, it's deficient in it, and 2, it means you get a buildup of this, so it does build up to toxic levels. But if you had this, you'd know it. We're talking about microcephaly, mental disability, seizures, all sorts of things. And you'd be on a special diet. You'd avoid pretty much all the foods I mentioned that contain phenylalanine, not just aspartame. Also, you'd be taking certain drugs to help you. I mean, you'd know it if you had phenylketonuria.
Yeah, see? Do some research, you can save yourself a lot of stress, folks.
Yeah. I kind of see it as like the gluten thing. Okay, you want to avoid gluten if you have celiac disease. Otherwise, there's no point in it, and you're just robbing yourself of some really good foods with a lot of good nutrition in it.
This is a serious problem with the nutrition industry. They really need to do more charlatan fumigation because they're really not doing enough to keep this stuff out. It's ridiculous. And it's very harmful because then nobody's believing the legitimate advice because there's no way to separate it from all these people.
And of course, we have to get Monsanto in somehow. They had nothing to do with inventing aspartame. They just bought the company that invented it, and they owned it for a few years before the patent expired, so it's been touched by evil.
And they apologize for causing the common cold, too.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, she titles her article, Amino Sweet, Get the Facts Straight from the Start. Janet Hall, how about you get the facts straight from the start? Now, the other one is from Christina Sarich in her article, Aspartame's Name Changed to Amino Sweet, A Toxin is Still a Toxin. Yeah, like we said, it's the dose, not the substance. So, quote, this one substance has continually been shown to cause harm to human health. No, it hasn't. So why is the FDA renaming it instead of banning it completely from the food supply?
FDA didn't name that.
No, Ajinomoto made a new brand name from it 5 years before this stupid woman published this article.
This is all based on this idea that toxins will build up in your body over time until they hit lethal levels. I just say, if that were true, you people would have all turned into walking tumors years ago.
There is considerable evidence that artificial sweeteners cause cancer, including aspartame specifically. Nope, no, none whatsoever. But, I mean, she loves the buzzword. She talks about this is made from excrement from bacteria, and that's typical of people like that. It's from excrement, it's from their feces.
So is the vitamin K produced in your intestines.
Look, bacteria do not have feces or excrement or anything of the kind because they don't have digestive tracts. They're just byproducts of the natural bacterial chemistry. And of course she brings up GMOs too, but the fact is these bacteria are not necessarily genetically engineered, although they could be, and it's no big deal if they are. So, remember how we talked about phenylketonuria? Well, listen to the hideous lie this woman tells. Quote, aspartame breaks down into something called phenylalanine, among other things. This can cause a disorder known as phenylketonuria. No, 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 no. First of all, aspartame is made from phenylalanine, which is an essential amino acid that we all need. Second, phenylketonuria is a genetic disorder. It's an inability to metabolize phenylalanine, and the laughable thing is her own pull quote says this. It's purportedly from Wikipedia, quote, 1 in 15,000 people in the world has a genetic disorder called phenylketonuria. Their body can't metabolize synthesized phenylalanine. That's a wildly distorted quote. It doesn't actually appear on the Wikipedia page. I searched for the verbiage and I just found it quoted on other pseudoscience sites, but even their mangled up quote says it's a genetic disorder resulting in an inability to process phenylalanine.
Horse first, then the cart. How many times do we have to explain this?
Quote, not only that, but aspartame is also chemically addictive to the body. Well, if you define addictive as need the amino acids to create protein so you don't die.
Okay, so kind of true, I guess.
Well, this claim was based on an animal study where rats preferred eating saccharin. That's right, it wasn't even aspartame, it was saccharin. They preferred it to being injected with cocaine. That may just be because they'd rather eat something than be stuck with a needle, but... The main takeaway is it wasn't any different from ordinary sugar and any other sweet foods. And the idea was that they could use the sugar or the artificial sweetener or whatever kind of as a substitute so they wouldn't have to keep getting the cocaine, which is actually kind of a good thing. So keep that in mind when she goes on to say, quote, eat honey, applesauce, raw non-GMO sugar, and other real food sweeteners instead. But all of those have the same effect on those rats as saccharin.
Oops. Apparently they just have a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Sugar's good. That's all that proved.
Yeah, rodents like sweets. They need it for energy. That's... You see them eat fruit all the time.
And the non-GMO sugar is just more Bogosity. A while back I made a graphic and posted it to the Facebook page. And basically the idea was the sucrose from organic sugarcane is identical to the sucrose from genetically modified sugar beets. They're the same molecule, there's no difference whatsoever, and it just shows you how completely unqualified these people are to be speaking out on these issues.
Watch them start pulling out the homeopathic nonsense where one has the natural essence or something like that. I'm predicting that's what you're going to see next.
Yeah, but keep all of this in mind when Janet Hall herself said, quote, "I will never accept the news of aspartame safety. Yep, they're unsinkable ducks, and no amount of evidence will ever be enough for them."
Yeah, people think that's skepticism. No, a skeptic demands to be convinced.
So if you want more information about this, in the show notes I'm including a link to yet another awesome video from Miles Power about aspartame, and I really like him. He's kept his quality up, unlike some other silver Cluon winners I could name but won't, who seem to have fallen into the social justice warrior bandwagon.
Bottom line, people, there's no such thing as natural foods. Genetically modifying food to better suit us is something we've been doing for centuries. Fretting about it now just makes you look clueless. Just relax and eat what you want.
Oh, that kind of reminds me, another great Miles Power video when you're looking around on his channel is fairly recent. You know, all the big thing is, the red grapefruits and how the grapefruits are so great. And he talks about how the red grapefruits are actually the result of genetic modification that was made by bombarding the plants with radiation.
Oops.
And it's completely organic and healthy. So all of that makes Janet Hall and Christina Sarich this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this Life is Like a Mop edition of the Bogosity Podcast. Come join the discussion at forum.bogosity.tv and feel free to join in by sending a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or the QR codes in the thumbnail, or become a patron at patreon.bogosity.tv and get the podcast and YouTube videos early and without ads or promos. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Tim Dyson for joining me.
Pleasure as always.
Until next time, here's a quote from Irving Janis. "The more amiability and esprit de corps there is among the members of a policy-making ingroup, the greater the danger that independent critical thinking will be replaced by groupthink, which is likely to result in irrational and dehumanizing actions directed against outgroups." The Bogosity Podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Bogosity. Christmas time is coming, and the most classic of Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol. But how much do you know about the original Charles Dickens novella? Have you dismissed it as a children's book with one-dimensional characters amounting to nothing but platitudes and cliches? Maybe your appreciation of the book was even muted by those dry, boring, annotated books they made you read in school. My book, the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, uses both facts and humor to present the book in a way you probably haven't seen it before. Giving praise when deserved and beratement when warranted, this book is put in the perspective of its time and shows a dimensional, multi-layered Ebenezer Scrooge from start to finish. Skepticism, history, and even economics are employed to show the book in relation to today in an easily accessible format. Appreciate the Christmas of your youth all over again. Get the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, available at Amazon and on PDF as well.